Hello, friends, and welcome back to Malicious Compliance Stories. Our first story is about how a simple "we don't sell that" turned into a public meltdown involving fake authority, inappropriate excuses, and behavior that crossed every possible line. But before we begin, best way to support our channel is to leave comments, like, and subscribe with the turned-on bell so you don't miss the new video every single day. Here we go. Customer's demand for a $1 Parmesan cup escalates to him screaming slurs, assaulting me, and getting chased out of the pizza place. So I worked at a fast food pizza chain that sold some really cheap food. We had an option for customers to purchase a cup of marinara sauce and one of those plastic containers for only $1. We don't put Parmesan in these cups because that would make them $5 due to the excess amount. A customer, C, walks in with 3 children in tow to get a pizza. He had a scraggly beard, the half-jacket, half-shirt look, and a red hat on. You know which one. He got a few pizzas and was waiting for the order to be fulfilled while I was helping another customer when he butted in. C, can I get a cup of Parmesan too? Me, I'm sorry, sir, but I'm helping another customer right now. Could you please sit down? C, fine. He sat down and I helped the customer with their order number and had them sit to the right of the Karen. C, okay, now that that's over, he sounded so impatient, can I get a cup of Parmesan? Me, we do not sell cups of Parmesan, but we have Parmesan packets, so I could give you a few of those. C, no, I want a cup of it, one of those dollar cups. Me, I can't do that, but let me get my manager to see if we can. It'll probably cost a lot more than $1 though. I left to get my manager, and she looked at me like a confused dog, headlocked to the side and everything, after I told her the situation. Manager, we don't sell those. Me, yeah, but he won't listen. Maybe we could just give him a handful of packets? Manager, probably. My manager and I traveled around the divider between the kitchen and the lobby, carrying a few Parmesan packets so we could give C a few and restock the others. I plopped around 15 Parmesan packets into a bag and gave them to C. He was furious. C, is this some kind of effing joke? I told you I wanted a cup of Parmesan, not these packets. Me, well, my manager told me to just give you a few of these because we can't make cups of Parmesan. It won't register in our inventory. This man was not having it and started dumping random information on me to make me get a cup of Parmesan for him. C, my 3 kids there, pointing to his kids in the seats behind him, all were clearly embarrassed, have autism. And the only way I can make them eat something is with Parmesan on it. They're very skinny and don't eat much, so they really need this. That sounded like cartoonist logic to me, and I have a brother on the spectrum, sometimes going from low to high bouts of it, and only one of these kids, the youngest, exhibited any traits, and the others seemed fine. They might still have it, though. Me motioning for my manager to help defuse the situation. Sir, we have your food ready, and there's a dollar store just about a block from here, so you can take your food and pick up one of the shakers there. They have more Parmesan than one of these cups. C, no, I used to work at the pizza place in the mall before it shut down. I always gave and received a cup of Parmesan when I wanted it, and right now I'm considering calling corporate on your F word, A word. My mood immediately switched after hearing that word. I have earrings and have an overall feminine demeanor, but I am bisexual. And if I was already over the edge, I was now launched several miles over it. Me, sir, I need you to leave right now. C reached over the short counter and grasped at me, only grabbing my necklace. We were allowed to wear necklaces up front as long as it was inside our shirt, but mine must have come out at some point. It tore into the back of my neck and got it out of his hands before he could hurt me anymore, and my manager was yelling at him to get out or we would call the police. He started yelling all kinds of slurs, addressing the one black lady in the room with that word and telling her to never eat from our location again, saying we were a bunch of F-words who needed new employees. If you want someone to listen to you, maybe don't call them a slur. The lady he addressed was looking at him with daggers, and he was getting ready to throw hands, it looked like. He took his kids out the door, flipping us off while holding his pizzas. My manager came over and was looking at my neck. The skin was all red, but it didn't break past the first layer. It looked like a long strip of sunburn, and I never wore a necklace for the rest of the time I worked there. I wasn't going to press charges because on the security footage, his license plate was only blocked out by that stupid smoker's pillar. The one lady in there put a 50 in the tip jar and said that we were so brave for taking him on, and she said that she was getting ready to sock him in the face when he called her that. But the icing on the cake, his wife called to apologize the next day. And our next story. Neighbor didn't know his son was a police lieutenant. I'm posting this from a throwaway because my town is small. Like, if you sneeze in your backyard, your neighbor will report it as a suspicious noise small. And around here, some people treat 911 like it's their personal make the world quiet button. My parents are quiet, normal people. My dad's a veteran, the type who doesn't say, "This is hard," even when it's hard. My mom's polite to a fault, old school. Don't bother anyone if you can avoid it. They live in a small, unnamed town somewhere in the U.S., where the biggest weekly event is usually a sale on steaks at the grocery store. I work in law enforcement. I'm past patrol now. I'm a lieutenant. And that's exactly why my dad never told me what was happening. To him, complaining equals whining, and whining equals weakness. Plus, he genuinely didn't want me bringing work home. And honestly, it might have kept going like that if one neighbor hadn't decided the police were his personal customer service department. The neighbor, let's call him Ron, was the kind of guy who always looked half annoyed and half confident. He'd moved into the neighborhood recently and immediately acted like he'd bought not just a house, but the job title local enforcer. At first, it was just checking in. "Your parents, are they okay? I saw them walking kind of slow," Ron said one day. "Yes, Ron," my mom replied politely. "My dad is older." Then checking in turned into monitoring. "Your trash cans are too close to the road." "Okay, we'll move them," my mom said, still polite. Then came the first police call. Ron called because my dad, dramatic pause, trimmed some bushes on a Saturday afternoon. Not at 6 a.m., not at midnight, in the afternoon. A patrol officer showed up, young guy, slightly confused, walks up to my dad. "Sir, we got a call about noise." My dad standing there with pruning shears and the expression of a man who's seen worse. "Noise? It's a bush. It didn't scream." The officer fought a smile, nodded, and left. Second call, suspicious vehicle outside their house. It was a pharmacy delivery for my mom. Third call, they're burning something in the backyard. My dad was grilling steaks. The most American crime imaginable. Then it escalated. They're blocking access. They weren't. They have a dog off leash. They don't even have a dog. There's a stranger in the yard. It was me visiting for the weekend. And here's the key part. My parents never told me. Every time they politely opened the door, answered questions, showed whatever they needed to show, and my dad always ended with the same sentence. "Sorry you got pulled into this. Job's a job." I would have stayed in the dark much longer if one evening at work I hadn't heard my parents' address come over the radio. Dispatch Unit 12, welfare check, elderly male, possibly confused, neighbor reporting. My stomach dropped. A welfare check isn't loud bushes. A welfare check is let's make contact and see if they're safe, which can turn ugly fast if someone's pushing a narrative. I went straight to my shift supervisor. "Sir, that address is my parents'. I can't be involved, but this sounds like a pattern of false calls. Please make sure this gets handled correctly." He raised an eyebrow. "You're just hearing this now?" "Yeah, they never told me." I felt anger, not even at Ron yet, but at my dad's stubborn, I'll-handle-it reflex. After my shift, I went to my parents' place in plain clothes, no badge, no lieutenant energy, just a son. My dad opened the door, calm as always. My mom looked tense. "Everything okay?" I asked. Dad shrugged. "Yeah, Ron decided again that we must be dead." Mom added quietly, "He told dispatch your dad was not acting right and might be dangerous." I almost fell over. I took a slow breath. How many times has he called the police? Mom looked at Dad. Dad tried to wave it off. Just a few. Mom said 16 in 2 months. I sat down at the kitchen table like someone had just hit me with a brick made of information. "Dad, why didn't you tell me?" He stared into his coffee like the answer might appear. "You're already buried at work. I didn't want you thinking I was complaining." That was so veteran-coded I almost didn't know how to argue, but I kept my voice calm because I knew if I raised it, he'd shut down. "You're not complaining. You're protecting Mom and yourself. Those aren't the same thing." The next day, I did exactly what I'm supposed to do if I wanted something to hold up cleanly. I officially removed myself from the situation. No, I'll show up and scare him with the badge. That would be the fastest way to poison any case. I filed a conflict of interest notice. I asked for another supervisor to handle anything involving my parents' address, procedure only. Then I told my parents 3 things. 1, every call, get the incident number. 2, we're installing cameras, not for revenge, for proof. 3, if he comes onto your property, call the police. Not me, the police. Dad grumbled, cameras feel paranoid. I said, Ron calling 911 about bushes is paranoid. Cameras are just 2026. We installed 2 cameras, front and back, and 1 angled at the driveway. That's when Ron made his biggest mistake. About a week later, around 1 a.m., the cameras caught him climbing over their low fence, stepping into the yard, and shining a flashlight into the windows. Then he walked over to the grill, messed with something, left something there, and walked off. The next morning, my dad found an empty bottle of lighter fluid near the grill and a crumpled note. Dad looked at it and said, completely dry, he wants us to look like a hazard. Classic. No swearing, no yelling, just a calm diagnosis. We called the police through 911 like you're supposed to. An officer came out, watched the video, and his face changed into the expression of a man realizing noise complaint had turned into actual crime. He trespassed, the officer said. Mom, yes, and he shined a light into our windows. Dad added, and he left trash. Sloppy work. The officer almost smiled, then got serious and nodded. That's trespassing. That's a different conversation. 2 days later, Ron called again. This time he claimed my dad had threatened him with a gun. That's a serious allegation, and it can go sideways fast, except for 2 things. 1, my dad doesn't wave guns around. The most dangerous thing he's ever swung in that yard is a wrench. 2, we now had cameras. Officers arrived by the book. Dad came out onto the porch, hands visible, calm. Sir, we were told, Dad raised an eyebrow, that I'm marching around with an automatic weapon? No, boys, the only aggressive thing I have is a coffee maker. They reviewed the footage, they checked the timeline, they compared it to Ron's statement. And that's when the system finally did what it's supposed to do. It recognized a pattern. From there, it was handled by people who had nothing to do with me. My supervisor, not me, officially requested the call history. The legal unit pulled the records. Another officer built the case. Video of the night trespass. The list of repeated false calls. Body cam footage showing there was no gun threat. Statements from my parents. Ron was charged with filing a false report, plus trespassing, plus harassment. And yes, this actually works when you have evidence and not just, I feel like it. One funny moment, an officer came by to ask my parents one more follow-up question, and my dad, still polite as ever, asked, water or coffee? The officer said, Sir, after your neighbor, I need something stronger than coffee. Dad didn't blink. I've got tea. It's basically the same thing, just with less lying. Court day came. I was there, but not as the lieutenant, just a son sitting quietly in the back. No talking to the judge, no pulling strings. I even sat where I'd be less noticeable. Ron showed up in a suit that screamed, I'm a good citizen who's just very concerned. He tried to wear the victim face. The judge looked through the paperwork and asked short questions, the kind that makes lies start sweating. You called the police 16 times in 2 months? Ron, I was just worried. The bushes worried you? It was loud. And at 1 a.m. you were worried while climbing their fence? Ron froze. The prosecutor played the video on the big screen, Ron sneaking around like a cartoon villain, flashlight in hand, leaving trash by the grill. Someone in the courtroom quietly snorted. The judge didn't even look up, but I could feel he wanted to. Ron tried one last move. They're dangerous. He's a veteran. I didn't know what to expect. That's when my dad, who'd been sitting straight and silent the whole time, lifted his head and spoke in the calmest voice imaginable. Your Honor, I'm a veteran. That's exactly why I didn't call the police over every little thing. I thought people had decency. The room went dead silent. You could hear paper shifting. The judge stared at Ron for a long moment. You used emergency services as a tool of harassment. That's not concern, that's abuse. The outcome was pure pro-revenge without any dirty moves, fines, probation-style restrictions, a no-contact order, and reimbursement for some costs. The best part, the decision clearly documented that the calls were baseless, so any future concern from Ron would be treated very differently. After court, Ron walked outside and saw me. I didn't approach him. I didn't say anything. I didn't even stare, but he understood. He opened his mouth like he wanted to speak, then shut it. Then he walked away fast, staring at the ground like a kid caught lying in front of the whole class. Some neighbors borrow sugar. Mine borrowed the 911 line. Turns out the only real emergency was his obsession with my parents' backyard. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.